Ryan? Ryan?
Is Tamara here?
No. We already told you there is no Tamara here.
This is Tim.
This is Jonathan.
Welcome to another episode of The Average.
Woo!
We're thrilled to have you with us tonight. We have a very special guest, Chris, returning to the show. You may remember Chris from our 13 Nights of Halloween when he joined us for the Ringu episode, which just happens to be our most listened to episode on any of our audio platforms.
Nice.
So you still got that.
I won't take any credit for that.
Oh, take all the credit. Still it was our first one to break 100. Woo.
Hey, nice. Right.
Yep. And he will be joining us again, and you'll see him coming up for some more Halloween episodes here in the future. So he will be joining us for that. Tonight, we're diving into a discussion about The Strangers Chapter 1. So this is a 2024. We're not calling it a reboot of the 2008 horror film, The Strangers. This one is directed by Rennie Harlin, and the film reinvents the original's terrifying home invasion premise with a fresh cast and an updated storyline. We follow a couple, Maya and Ryan. Why did it pick two names with Y's in it? That's so random. And sorry. As they embark on like two 4-letter names, both of them have a Y. As they embark on a cross-country road trip, their journey takes a terrifying turn when they decide to spend the night at a remote Airbnb in the woods. They don't really decide. Their car breaks down. They have nowhere to go. Hey, this guy has a place. They soon find themselves stalked and terrorized by 3 masked strangers, leading to a night of unimaginable horror and survival. Maya is played by Madeleine Pesch from Riverdale. I have not seen Froy Gutierrez in anything. He plays Ryan.
He looks familiar. Yeah.
He does look familiar.
He just looks like every other kind of like pretty white boy.
Yeah.
with dark hair and like a really well-trimmed beard. I don't know.
Yeah.
That you are not wrong at all. So for tonight, Chris and I have seen The Strangers, all 3 of them now at this point. Jonathan had not seen any of them, and I brought this movie up, and I was like, dude, I'm super hyped for this movie. Let's talk about it. And he was in. So since Jonathan has not seen any of the others, I think it'd be great to hear his opinion of this first, because our opinions might be spoiled by something that came before. I also think I'm going to go ahead and announce it now. You've already seen our teaser for 13 Nights of Halloween. This has inspired me. I think 13 Nights of Halloween, we're going to be talking originals versus remakes and comparing the two. So you're hearing it now. I'll put the list of movies out soon, but this 13 Nights of Halloween, comparing originals and remakes, I'm excited. So Jonathan, you want to kick us off and tell us what you thought of that story?
Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna go out and say it right out. I gave it a 3.
Do it.
It's the story doesn't really seem like anything that's really new to me. A lot of same kind of reoccurring themes from a lot of horror films we've seen in the past. Like you said already, couple out in the middle of nowhere, car breaks down mysteriously out of nowhere for whatever reason. And then next, they're staying somewhere that seems kind of shady and who knows what. And then boom, shit goes down and, they're being attacked. It's an okay story. I thought it was cool. It was very suspenseful. There's a lot of suspense leads, throughout a lot of scenes in the film that kind of really kept me on the edge a lot, which is great. But just the details of the story, it wasn't really anything all that special to me, so I just feel like 3 is a good mid-range for me on that based off the kind of stuff I've already seen in the past. So yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. So I gave it a 3 as well. And this was one I was going to change, but now that I think about it, separating the first from this one, which I feel like I kind of did, and I think we should do to some degree how we can. Everything. I agree with everything Jonathan said, and this is really an attribute of the first one, but I'm still going to give this one credit for it. Like the idea of these people being, the home invasion premise. I don't know that it's entirely overused. We've seen it, and we've seen. And I've talked to you, Tim. I've called the first one a slasher, and I know this isn't a slasher, but it has like slasher elements. It's kind of like a derivative of the slasher genre to some degree. But I don't know, the whole premise of like these very human, like masked people just, I don't know, attacking. Or they're not even. Well, they are attacking them, but they're kind of like taunting them and haunting them. Like their objective isn't necessarily to kill, these people, at least not immediately. Yeah, it's kind of like a hunter prey predator type thing, and I do think that's interesting. And the concept itself is original compared to a lot of horror, or at least like masked villain type horror movies. And so I gave it a 3 too, and I thought about downgrading it, but I'll stick with it.
Okay, so I don't know how you plan to talk about this movie and not separate it from the original. I don't know if I can try, because I give the story a 2. I said it was okay because without fail, nearly beat for beat in this movie, I turned to my wife and told her what was going to happen because I've seen this movie before. And it did not let me down in hitting all of the exact same beats of the original movie, but it wasn't as good. It failed in what it added. So it does make me curious. This is chapter 1. Rennie Harlan, the director, stated that this is act 1 of a 3-act story. So this is your first act. And so if I keep that in mind, I'm very curious about act 2 and 3. What's coming?
Well, how long was the first one?
It was about an hour and a half, wasn't it?
So I watched it this morning. It says an hour and a half, but it's actually, the credits are like 12 minutes. It was an hour and like 16 minutes. So it's very shorter than this one.
And the first one feels like it's forever long, but for me, that's in the best way possible. I lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I think what I was disappointed with, I gave it 2 for adding some new ideas to the story, like that small town, that diner scene. It ultimately didn't serve a purpose in this film. I wonder if it's going to in 2 and 3. Otherwise, there's no purpose for it at all. So I gave it 2 for trying to insert some new ideas into this original film. But ultimately, the things I was super disappointed in, spoilers right here, if you've seen the original, as soon as they found a shotgun, I knew what was going to happen. Because in the original, they find the gun and they kill an innocent person. Original's impact was way higher than this one was.
Yeah, there was significantly more emotional impact in the first one based on who was murdered. I will give it that.
The cars, I knew immediately, like every car, the motorcycle, something's going to happen. I knew just because it followed the exact same beats as the original film. And I told my wife, like when she was hiding in that closet, and originally it was the girl who was there, and then it got quiet and she heard footsteps and rustling. I was like, it's going to be her boyfriend. He's back. Oh, sure enough, it's her boyfriend. He's back. So it didn't really get me on any of that because it felt like we're redoing what we've already done. So I gave it was okay. They brought in some new ideas. I applaud that. I like that. I wish they had subverted some of those other things. I think this ultimately struggled on the story department with a lot of people disliked Pray at Night, the first sequel. Disliked Pray at Night because it was very different from the original film. This one is very similar to the original film. So I think it's that juggling, that fine line of, do we do something crazy different like Pray at Night did, or do we do something very similar? And I think they went too similar. And that's ultimately why I give it an okay on the story. So we can go into... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just a few things, I guess. I don't know where pacing would generally go into these, but I think I incorporate it into like the story plot and the rating. I thought this one was pretty well paced, similar to the first one. I mean, I maybe because I was enjoying myself. I mean, I didn't really think it dragged much at all. I mean, maybe like the forest scene at the end was, dragging a little, but I thought it was well paced, and so I think that kind of inflated my story plot score. But yeah, I think just based on what you just said, and we had kind of talked about this, it's kind of like a Dune Part 1 and a Dune Part 2. Like, we kind of have to see what happens in the sequel, and I do think there's a lot of potential for, like, the exploration of her trauma and stuff, because I didn't see the post-credit scene. I didn't know there was one. I know.
So,
and
I told
Jonathan,
Tim about it.
Tell us full spoilers to anybody watching this. We're going to talk about it all. But outside of this post-credit scene, actually this post-credit scene...
It irritated the hell out of me.
Jonathan, tell us about it. Tell us about it.
It's just like, I mean, it's great she survived and all, but like considering it's a chapter 1 with 2 more segments to come, I was expecting that, she would just, move on with her life because she'd be safe now that she's in a hospital somewhere, where, the people wouldn't dare really try to come after her. But then, holy shit, she turns and there's the guy in his fucking mask there next to her in the hospital. Like, where's security? How is this dude getting in here? What the hell is going on? It pissed me off so bad.
Did you say it irritated you?
Okay, it pissed me off. So it irritated, it pissed me off.
Okay, yep, me too.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I was disappointed in that is if you watch on your DVD of the original film. So in the original film, it's 2008, people, you should have seen it if you haven't. The original film, everybody dies at the end. And those 2 Mormon boys, Mormon Jehovah's Witness, that we see in the town that serve no purpose in this film. In the original film, those 2 boys are the ones who find the couple murdered on the floor in the house. They're knocking and they see the doors already open and they walk in and they're like, oh shit. And then if you watch the special features, there's an alternate ending. I believe it's the alternate ending where they walk in and she's still alive.
So I saw that. That's the ending I saw on Amazon Prime today. I think that's the only ending I've ever seen, is like it ends where she like screams and wakes up and it goes to black. Okay,
so maybe I thought it was an alternate ending I was watching and it wasn't.
It could very well be. I don't.
So she survived in the original one. So this movie literally was beat for beat. I knew she was going to survive. The hospital, that took me straight back to 80s slasher movies where like
Halloween and stuff.
Yeah. Where like Jason is in the hospital. The hospital is completely pitch black. There's no lights on anywhere in this hospital. There's nobody paying any attention to anything. And somehow this guy got in there with a mask and laid down in her bed with her. It was a little bit like, but I'm in. I'm curious. Tell me more. So it wasn't great, but I am like we've said, I am curious about chapter 2. I am curious to see where they're going with this.
But see, with there being 3 chapters, like it makes me wonder with the first film, like being like the original being just an hour and 12, basically after you take out the credits, they're taking everything that's in that and stretching that into 3 segments or something. Like I don't get it.
So
the
original,
you need to watch the other ones to understand.
I would highly recommend watching the other ones. The original. So everybody understands. Moving on for the rest of this episode, for you listeners. I still think to this day, the original Strangers is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And it's more scary in idea and concept than it is in necessarily what's on screen. The idea of, well, the film takes place, like we said, they added a whole bunch. The film starts basically with this couple entering the home. They are coming from a failed marriage proposal where he proposed and she was like, no. And then they still were going to this like celebratory thing. And it's a depressing beginning already that you're kind of hurt for these two. But the entire film, with the exception of a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end, takes place inside the house or in the yard. It's very secluded. That's why it's an hour and 60 minutes, but it is a tense hour and 60 minutes. I love it. Just that idea of everything they do in the film isn't enough. They do the things that you're like, I do this. And you're like, yep, they did. And it didn't work out. And that's one of the things I really like about the original Strangers is I felt like they acted naturally in the situation, not the cliche doing dumb things running everywhere.
Which did happen a lot in this movie. Before we get to character, because I guess that's a good segue into character. Well, I guess you haven't talked. Well, you kind of. I don't know if you've said everything about the story or not, but
I said enough. I'll say more.
I didn't see the post-credit scene, but I read about it online a little bit. I just I Googled like what happens. But some people were talking about how it might be kind of like in her imagination. Like he wasn't physically there, but it's kind of like a hollow, like Jamie Lee Curtis in H2O. Like Michael's kind of around, but it's her like trauma, and she's like projecting him in places.
Okay.
I didn't see how the scene was filmed, and so that might not make sense. And he might, the director and writers may not consider this, but
you want to see how it was filmed? Ready? And then she leans forward, and he's right here.
Boom, like that's right there.
You did a really good job.
Yeah, that was it.
So, I mean, I don't know. It might just be kind of like a mind play thing, and it depends how they act in the second one. I mean, I kind of hope the second is more of kind of like a commentary on like the psyche and like her psychological damage from it versus just like another cut and paste. Well, I don't know what they're going to do with it, honestly.
I think we're already spiraling into theories for the second one. That's fine with me.
That's some ideas there.
Well, because I noticed that the opening scene in this actually had me pretty optimistic. That nice drone shot over the woods, the guy running through the woods, and then the brutal crunching sound of that axe in his head. That was like, whoo, that was good. And then it didn't matter at all because we do see a missing poster for him in the diner. And so I do wonder if we're going to go back. I assume we're going back to that town and we're going to be investigating why these two were killed, why he went missing. It's all connected to that fucking turkey melt.
She saw his corpse though. She saw that. I think that was his corpse when she was like going.
Watching everything.
Yeah, going camo into the branches or whatever she was doing. A silly little scene.
Was he dead for 3 years? That was pretty decomposed.
And so maybe this has been happening for a long time. And I think them kind of like focusing on him a little bit with that opening shot and the missing poster and his inevitable corpse, it does make me think like this town of Venus should be this central kind of, like, there should be more to this town than just a stopping place for them and that they never revisit it, you know? Yes.
So I assume based on this discussion and what I saw in the movie, I'm almost wondering if this Venus town is the Stranger's Crystal Lake or Michael's Haddonfield You know, to me, I don't want that. I don't need that. What I loved about the first two was that they were completely random. It made no place safe from the strangers.
I agree, and we can. The second one, and you know how I feel about the second one. It's just there wasn't enough like sample with the existing like source material pre chapter one to really like know what they're doing. The second one's so much different than the first, and I get that it still has that random component, but I don't think there's enough consistency with what we've seen to really understand. Like, I'm hoping we get that from these three movies, is to kind of understand more like what the strangers are.
Well, I want to know if like they're going to continue on with her and like in her friends getting involved, or if they're just going to shift to new people getting, or some, just like complete thing, and while she's just kind of hanging off to like a chapter 3 segment or something.
Well, let's dive into a little bit of character and talk about our main two are Ryan and Maya.
Yeah.
Was it Maya?
Yeah, that's her name. I thought his name was Brian, so that goes to show how well I know.
Ryan and Maya. We have those two. We have some random members of the town. Like Rudy is the mechanic who is your red herring. He's the creepy mechanic, carries a big wrench. Outside of that, well, I'm sure we're going to see them play up again. We mentioned what seemed to be some businessman. Maybe they mentioned he was a businessman at the diner who died in the very beginning. And then she is on her phone with a family member. And we see a video call. The only reason I can believe that exists, and I was paying attention for it, is she gives her location to that family member. That family member looked at flights from that area to wherever they are now. So I assume that family member is coming back. Otherwise, again, it's a completely needless scene. So
I think so. I think we almost get kind of like a Halloween 2018 and then a Halloween Kills, where Halloween Kills, there's like a death count of like 40 people and it's like absurd compared to Halloween 2018, which Halloween Kills is controversial as well. I actually kind of like that movie, but I think we're going to get a whole like cast of characters that are related to that party that's kind of abroad, and they're going to come, and that'll be kind of the basis of the sequel.
If this sets up a kill fest in the next episode, I'm all for it. I'm in. I will change my mind about this because that's what I need. All right. So Jonathan, what did you think of the characters and story arc, or however you want to break it down? My nose is itching.
Well, they had a lot of like side characters, with like, the creepy little church kids. Then you got the couple like, oh, it's our anniversary too. And then everyone being all like, oh, you're not actually married. Like, oh, whatever. You talking your bullshit with, be together 5 years.
Small towns.
All the little small town people and their little small town ways and small town thinking kind of thing. They kind of seems really prominent in the way they push those scenes with the characters. The three creepy people, the guy and the woman and the I'm speaking as a teenage girl. Creepy as hell. I think they did a good job with those characters. I can't wait to see them get their comeuppance and just get totally savaged in like 2 or 3 to see whoever can get taken out. But as far as the main characters, Ryan and Maya, I figured they were just going to both die, so it didn't really matter as far as like any arc though. But I don't know. For some reason, I gave it a 4, even though I probably should change it to a 3 because there just wasn't much growth of anything or any real crazy change with them. It's just they're scared, they get hunted. He tries to fight back. They both get taken down. He stabbed, died, and then she stabbed but miraculously lives. And then we just kind of wait to see what happens. So I'm going to change my 4 to a 3. Yeah,
got
3. It. Yeah, and I want to see what comes about with the other character, like the other townies. Like when Ryan goes to get food on the motorcycle, he sees them there at the little burger shack place, and I want to see how like if the rest of these people play into it, because you got the woman who's in the little shack taking the order, and she tries to hand him one of those flyers that the church kids tried to give him, and it makes me wonder if like there's some creepy tie-in with that. But other than that, I don't really see any need for those characters unless that does play in again later in 2 and 3.
I agree. I thought that flyer was for a like public hearing. I
Well,
thought
that
it was a
church
call.
thing.
Okay, which I was like, why is she giving that? I thought I read on it public hearing or whatever. I was like, why is she giving that to him? He doesn't live there. So that makes more sense than it's the church flyer.
I think it is a church flyer. I mean, that's in the first movie. That's the same. Those kids give the strangers a church flyer as they're driving away.
It's
The girl
so
had asked you
good.
about-
That scene
yeah,
is so good.
and it's the same thing that happens at the beginning of this one. So I like to think that maybe there's some kind of like foil, and I don't know. This movie probably isn't that complex, but
Well, they said this is supposed to be a prequel. This series is supposed to be a prequel to the original, and I think that's why I have such a big issue with the story being beat for beat the same.
it really can't be though, because the time, like the strangers,
No, the time period doesn't work.
yeah, like this one has FaceTime and smartphones. It's very obviously 10 plus years after the first.
Yeah. So it makes me worried that they really didn't know what they were doing.
Maybe like a spiritual prequel. Like this is kind of like it's meant to talk about an origin that could be could have been the origin of the original type thing.
That's fair. All right, Chris, what did you? No, go ahead. What you thought about character?
I kind of have a lot to say on character, but I'll try to be concise. So I gave it a 2.
No, go for it, because I don't have a lot.
Well, I just want to preface, like, the dumb characters, I think, are the reason that most people hate this movie. Like, I think that's where it's been getting a lot of its bad, like, press, is because of how stupid the characters are. But I have this thing in my brain, because of how much I like 80s slasher movies, to where, like, I expect the characters to be stupid and bad because I know they're all going to get murdered. And as soon as I kind of recognize a movie is going to have bad characters, I can kind of like just flip off caring about the characters. And like, I don't think about that anymore, which is kind of what I did in this movie. Like that first dialogue scene where they're driving the car, and maybe this is cringy. It is. It's so corny, and it goes into script more than anything, but their acting is so like plastic. They're almost like dolls. I feel like this is like a
it's
Barbie
almost
doll,
as if
doll.
It's almost as if she was known for her role on a CW original.
I will say though, I have such
I can see that for sure. Oh man,
I have such a thick. Oh Jesus, I have such a like a weak spot for like a thick redheaded girl, and this girl the whole time I kind of had like this internal bias of just. I was in love with her, kind of. So I kind of every time she spoke, I was like, "Well, she can say that because she looks the way she does." But anyways, I gave the characters a 2, and I was mainly just thinking about those two and how bad of characters they are. And sometimes I like their dialogue, though. Like if I had my like notes in the theater, there was some like, and this is getting into script, but. Character entirely, like I don't know, their script was their arc was kind of dull and whatnot, but as we've been talking, I think like the town of Venus itself is kind of a character, and the townies within it, and I thought they were interesting and added some depth to things, and more importantly, I didn't consider the strangers as characters at all when I rated it a 2, and I think they had a lot of personality. I liked their personality in this movie. Like I liked the scene. I don't remember which one. I get the 2 girls confused, but when he has the shotgun like to her head, and she's
their masks were too similar in this one. The girls,
yeah, but I thought they were well done. I liked the costume design and whatnot. That's not here, but she's like kind of dancing away and being kind of whimsical, and I thought that was a really cool like suspenseful scene. And so I think the strangers have some personality in this one, like they did in the original, but. So considering them, I'd maybe give character a 3, honestly. I mean, well, I don't know. Yeah, I'd give it a 3. I'm going up here.
Okay. You do that because that's going to average out for me. I mean, Chris, you said it. These characters are stupid. I think that is one of the things I struggled hardest with in this film. Is the original, the characters are people I felt for. They walk in, they're already sad. Yeah, maybe a little whiny, but like I felt like they were a real couple who is having a misunderstanding. I think if I'm remembering it correctly, it's been a while. They were at a wedding and he took that opportunity to propose to her and she's not ready. And so they had already planned to like abscond to his parents' country home or whatever. And it was all set up, rose petals everywhere, super romantic, whatever. And they walk in and it's somber and there's just kind of silence and they're separated. And you're drawn into this mystery, but at the core of the original Strangers movie is their romance. Because at the end of it, they're, you know, you can see that sadness in their eyes. It's not they're glad the other person's leaving or whatever. And I feel like that relationship was the core of what made the original Strangers so hard to watch. This one, I was rooting for the Strangers to take these two out because they were driving me crazy. They just I don't know if it was, technically, are they millennials? I don't know what there was about it that was just kind of cringy. I didn't think this movie did a good job of getting them to that point where they were in the chair and he goes, "Will you marry me?" I might have been the person who laughed out loud in the theater when he said, "Will you marry me?" as they were tied to the chair. And she was like, "Yes." And I'm like, oh my God. But because earlier they were having the conversation about they were going to this place for a job interview. And would he want to move for her? And that was going to be a deal breaker from the way that conversation was going. And there is nothing about this movie where I was like, oh, this is the moment where he realized he would move for her, or this is the moment where she changed her mind and would stay with him forever. They did that, "Will you marry me?" to play with our emotions. And it didn't work for me. And I'm that's fine if it worked for somebody else. It didn't resonate with me. I gave the characters and their arc a fat 0. I didn't think there was much of an arc. I think they tried it. It did not work for me because I did not see I saw where we started. I thought their kind of excuses for not getting married were kind of BS. Everybody has their own reasons, but doesn't ever really say why he hasn't put a ring on it after 5 years.
So I think it would have been, I think a piece of this would have been cool is if like when he's dying or in some way we see that he had a ring and he was going to propose to her like soon, like somewhere on this trip. And that's why he was kind of, and then that's why he was kind of, being like dodging it, is because he had this plan and it was coming up soon. And he just never got to do it because they were massacred or he was killed,
Yes.
And so
that would have hit for me. That would have been better. I would have taken that.
In my headcanon, that's kind of what I guess maybe I'm at fault for filling in gaps that this movie should have done.
Chris is filling in gaps of this movie to make it better.
Yeah, maybe that's, you're right. But I did like how kind of the romantic narrative, it was very cheesy, it was very corny, but it was coming at it from the opposite direction that the first one was. Like,
yes, it was. Yeah.
And so I kind of appreciated that, how you still have this couple, but it's coming up, like it's coming from the angle of like extreme, like euphoric happiness. Like their relationship's doing really well, and then obviously in the original, it's not.
It's on the rocks, yeah.
But they both get to the same place from those different angles, which I liked, but it could have been done better.
The Strangers bringing people together since 2008.
I think that's what I need. I kind of
you need to abscond to a cabin and have 3 people terrorize you.
Real healthy.
I did like that they've kind of flipped the couple on their head. I put that in my 2 points for story. Instead of a broken couple, it's a highly functional couple. So music and sound design.
Whale.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of middle road with it. I don't remember much in terms of the score. Like I was so focused on the suspense through a lot of it that I kind of lost on the hearing on that one. But like some of what they did with some of the music that they played from the vinyl records in the cabin, I thought was a nice touch because it's weird stuff you never heard before. You know, she's alone, already feeling paranoid, and you get a little more tension because of the awkward, crazy music, especially when the strangers are in the house and like she knows full alert. Oh my God, I'm in danger. I like where they went with that, but at the same time, dude's supposed to be leaving on a motorcycle, coming back on a motorcycle. Why the hell don't you hear that? You don't hear the motorcycle when he's leaving the house. You don't hear it when he's coming back to like let the girl know that hey, he's coming. You need to run out.
The strangers heard the police sirens from miles away.
Yeah, so that kind of bothered me a bit, and I was just like, "What the hell, man? Like that, lame."
Yeah.
But what they like the one scene though where she tries to hit the flip a switch and accidentally turns on the garbage compactor or in the sink. That got me, dude. I was like, "Oh Jesus!" Like,
well, it's because we've all done that to ourselves. Like I've done that to myself, like trying to reach for a light and it's the garbage disposal.
Yeah, they got good jump scare moments in there, and the way they use the sound for that was pretty cool. But other than that, I mean, I didn't really get much out of it. So, like I said, I was kind of middle of the road. I went with a 3 on it.
Yeah.
I went with a 2. I agree with most of what Jonathan said. The score is very not memorable, unmemorable, immemorable, whichever. It's not memorable at all. But I think like a lot of the sound, like the knocking is pretty punchy. I do think there's good sound design throughout. I mean, flawed sound design, but I think there are some good moments. And then this is akin to the first, but like some of the vinyl stuff, like Jonathan said, I like the sounds. I liked the piano scenes in this one. It kind of is like, because there's some piano play in the first, but this one, I like how she sits down and starts playing like Moonlight Sonata. And I don't know. This is probably, but go ahead, Tim.
I did like how the stranger, I think it wasn't Baby Doll, it was Dollface. I think how Dollface played the same song back, but she had no knowledge that they were in the house at that time. That was an added layer of creepiness to that. That was nice. I did like that.
Yes. Wasn't she playing it with a knife, or did she only play like one note with a knife? And she was, I thought that was cool. And I mean, that kind of goes with like the punchy sounds. The piano sounds good. I mean, it's a small thing, but I gave it a 2. I mean, there was nothing memorable about the score, and I think overall it had its flaws. So
I actually gave this one a 3. I liked the sound design, other than like Jonathan said, the motorcycle. I thought the same thing. I was like, why is she going to the door thinking he is here when she did not hear that motorcycle pull up? And then at the end, when the strangers had so much time to clear out the house, get in their truck, drive down the road, go down a wide road, all from hearing the sirens in the distance, that was poorly designed. But the footsteps in the house, the creaking of the floorboards, when they were under the house and you could hear them walking overhead, I was like, this is nice. This is good. I enjoy this. I thought that part was really well done. So it was kind of averaged it out at a 3. I do think the door knocks were nice and punchy, as they should be. Those door knocks, you hear those 3 knocks in this Tamara here, and that's going to freak me out every time. So it never fails. I love these movies for that call. But overall, I wasn't as disappointed in it as the rest of the film. I did feel like they were doing this weird thing with the music. So the original film, Chris, how would you describe that song? It's like one song is played over and over again. Is it like old country? I don't listen to country, so I don't know.
On the vinyl you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I was going to look this up and listen to it on Spotify as I drove to my destination today. But I didn't. I mean, it kind of just has that vinyl sound. I don't know, like kind of like some 50s soft rock, maybe soft country. I don't know. It's older.
It's an interesting song. I'm going to try to see if I can find it real quick.
Some old country vinyl print, some small.
It'll be like music. Yeah, it'll be like some 80s song or something, and we're both completely off.
Well, okay, so that brings it up that both of these movies, the original two, yeah, this sounds like country stuff to me. Well, Mama Tried, Merle Haggard.
Okay.
At My Window, Sad and Lonely by Jeff Tweedy.
Yeah, so that's like older. That's like older country.
Old country. So that was the feel in the first Strangers movie.
Well,
and what they
houses, because like the first one, it's like his grandpa's house, and this one's like a hunter's house. So it makes sense for two people.
That's fair. Yeah,
it's an Airbnb.
That's what I kind of liked about it, was they went for that old vinyl, but what they did with the old in the 2008 movie that I love so much was that record skipping over and over and playing the same part that just kind of unsettled you. It was so good. I miss that in this movie with the older stuff that, like you said, it's kind of unrecognizable. I don't know it. I didn't know it, but it fit the scenes. It was fine. The sequel went full blown, and I was talking to Chris about this. The sequel went like 80s music video with it. I mean, we had Total Eclipse of the Heart as somebody's getting stabbed in a pool. It was so good. There's so much 80s in the sequel. So both of the previous movies have done unique things with music, whether it's using an object in the room in the first one to unsettle you, or in the second one, it used it to like glam up the movie, for lack of a better term. This one tried to marry the two, where we used the old vinyls in the cabin as backdrops for scenes. And I appreciated the effort. I don't think any of the songs quite stood out like the other two movies so far, but I kind of liked what they were doing with it. So I'm okay. I'll see if they continue a music trend in these films. So I give it a 3 overall.
I hope to like learn why they like music so much. Like it seemed to be such like a distinctive like character trait to the Strangers in the original the original two, but we never, got any resolution to that. And so I hope I don't know what it would be to where it's impactful, but it's obviously like a piece of them is enjoying music. And so I don't know how that would,
well, I saw, when I rewatched Pray at Night, I noticed when the dad crashes the car, Scarecrow can't kill him until he gets the radio station right.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So that is, I never put that together with this scene in this movie where the record's playing and you see Scarecrow snapping his fingers. And initially I didn't like that, but now that you brought up that music has been important to them from the beginning, I'm like, you know what, it has. I'm okay with the snapping of the fingers.
don't they kind of I could be making this up, but don't they like dance a little bit together? Doesn't like one of the girls like lean into his chest and kind of like slow dance, or no? I don't know if Dollface and Scarecrow. Yep. I don't know if it was a dance or a hug, but goals. I think I called her Masked Mommy in the first when I told you about the sequel.
It's Scarecrow, Dollface, and Baby Doll.
They did look. The two girls looked very similar in this one, though. But I think they do kind of all. In the first one, I was kind of having trouble with it too.
Baby Doll didn't have the blonde hair that she's always had.
Yes, yeah, she was like really long, like Rob Zombie, Michael Myers, young Michael Myers hair.
Yep. All right, so into the editing and special effects, Jonathan.
Not really much to say about the special effects necessarily. I mean, you get that one scene where they're crawling under the house into that space, and Maya pierces her hand on that nail. Oh man, that had to suck. Good. But yeah, the sound and her being like, oh, and then like trying to stifle herself so hard, and then you see the nail and like it's like, oh damn, that looks like it hurts like hell. It looks awful,
Yeah.
And being under a dirty old underside of a cabin, who knows? And then seeing the bike blow up was cool. I like that part. I was about to get there and boom, nice little explosion on there. And then I don't know, like when Scarecrow takes his old Ford truck and is bashing into the Jeep of the guy they killed on accident, and everything just like with the fire and everything coming out of all that was kind of nice a little bit. But other than that, I didn't get much for special effects. I mean, there was the part where Ryan gets back with the Burger Shack food, and they start seeing the red drip, and it's the blood from the bird that's hanging out.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good placement of blood drip action going on there. So that was kind of cool. I like that.
Side note, that burger looked good. Either I was just hungry.
Did. I was like, how the hell do I get one of those? That didn't look fire, dude. And like,
I want that.
Meaty son of a bitch. You know?
That looked delicious.
That's the scene. That's the scene I went pee on. I saw they got their food, and I was like, "Oh, they're just gonna talk," so I gotta go. And then lo and behold, I come back, and they're like cowering in the room, and there's all this stuff going on. I was so pissed off. Anyways, keep going.
But with the editing, a lot of good shots. I think with like seeing that little bit of any one of the people in the house while she's moving around, while Maya's moving out throughout the house, especially that part where she is sitting there at the piano, she's playing, and you see Scarecrow in the mirror. I was like, oh no, oh my God.
That was probably my favorite shot of the movie, honestly.
And then got back and like him being gone from the chair. Like the dude's a ninja. Like they're straight ninjas. All of them are like ninjas through like the first part of the movie until they're out running around in the woods. That was good. Yeah. The way they cut those scenes up and everything, there was some of the stuff in the woods that I think they maybe could have cut out. There's a little too much of that from the running around and like, hollering out. I
hated that whole scene.
But other than that, the editing was okay. I think they could have cut out some more, like a little bit of like the road travel stuff during the beginning. Other than that, I think the rest of it was okay. I gave it a 4. Okay. Just because of the way the scenes transitioned and everything, the way they kind of kept pace with everything, like we were talking about earlier. So it worked for me pretty well. So I'm gonna stick with a 4 on that.
I mean, I gave it a 4 too, and for most of the same reasons that Jonathan just said. So I don't want to linger, but I thought the editing was pretty crisp, and I think like shots were longer when they needed to be, and I don't think there was anything like, I don't know. I thought the editing was good, and I thought the special effects were, really good as well. And I think that scene with, I like how you call him Scarecrow. I get it makes sense to me. I don't call him, I don't know what I call him, but
that's what he was listed in the credits, actually. Scarecrow.
Really? Because in the originals they call him what? Man with the Mask or something? That's his name?
Hey, Bagface.
Bagface.
Well, it has to be inspired by Jason in Friday the 13th
Part 2,
right?
Yep.
Which there's that whole scene where he bursts through the window behind her, and I think that's a direct like Friday the 13th scene. I think that might be part 2 when he comes through and takes her from behind, and the boyfriend shoots the shotgun, and I wouldn't have taken that shot. I wouldn't have trusted that.
How do you not blast her with a white spray? It's a shotgun.
Her brains would have gone. Her brains would have gone everywhere.
She would have at least got like some kind of speckle or something, some kind of hit with the close range, like where D was like right here.
But I liked that whole shed scene. I like when they get in there and it's pitch black and they turn on the Zippo, and then one of the girls is like right there in the shadow of the flame, and they don't see her.
That was a nice shot.
And that was a really good shot too, which I don't think that really falls into special effects and editing. But yeah, I gave it a 4, and I enjoyed it, and I didn't think there was anything that really took me out of it.
It did one of my biggest pet peeves of a director who doesn't know how to handle slow scenes. And it was way too many cuts during conversation. And it drove me crazy. But like you guys said, I agree with you for the most part. They're great cuts. The special effects, it's very minimal for this film. There were a couple times, maybe I'm being overly critical. Tell me if I am. There were a couple times Dollface's knife looked real fake.
It was a really thick looking knife too, thicker than what you would normally see for like some kind of big old butcher cutting knife like that. It kind of got me.
So I forgive it, but I hate quick cuts during conversation, and this may be just because I grew up watching Hitchcock movies where he would focus on one person's face for an entire conversation and just have the other person off camera. or focus on the opposite person's face so you could get their reactions. There's so many ways to shoot a conversation that cutting every time somebody speaks gets a little distracting for me. So that is the only reason I knocked it. I gave it a 3. I really outside for the editing, I really didn't have any complaints. I thought it looked pretty good all the way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, from there it takes us on to script. I've now after consideration, I think maybe I went a little too high on my score with this. The script was okay, but after everything I was trying to consider last night when I was filling this out, I think I may have maybe fat fingered it or something. I gave it a 4 originally, but I'm changing it to a 3.
Okay.
Because some of the dialogue didn't really do much for me. I don't know. It just seemed kind of blah, just average. Nothing special. I don't know. I don't really have much to say on script, really.
Yeah.
With most of the running around and all the tension you're feeling, and then kind of the blasé conversation with, her moving and being so thankful that he would drop everything, and there just wasn't much to go on as far as scripts. It's whatever.
Yeah, Chris. Just from looking ahead, we actually agree on this one. So,
what script?
Yeah.
So I think the script is bad, but I think it's a really. I like it. I think it's a very fun bad. I like to think it was self-aware, even though I know it probably wasn't. But it's consistently corny, and maybe it's the consistency that I like about it. It wasn't like there were just super corny sequences, then super serious sequences. I mean, it was consistently cheesy, but it was like a cheese that I thought added to the enjoyment factor. I thought
tasty cheese.
Yeah, I thought it was some tasteful cheese. I mean, and it kind of goes back to character, how I'm just I get to a point where when I see a certain type of character, I know they're not going to floor me. I just kind of turn character off and get excited to watch them go through the ringer. And with some of the writing, I don't know, it just kind of, it existed, and I didn't think any of it was super terrible, but it obviously wasn't, Quentin Tarantino or anything, So.
Right. The writing in this was probably my biggest complaint. And I'll take it, not even the way they spoke. The way they spoke reminded me, it was vaguely, like I said, the Netflix remake of The Strangers is basically the way the dialogue was. It wasn't great. But if I remember right, the original, was it nearly dialogue free? They talked, but for the most part, it was very much quiet.
I actually think they probably they do talk more than you think. I think if you rewatch it tonight, you'll notice that they do. They talk more than you think, but the first one, the script is really good. Their interaction is genuine, authentic, and it kind of has to do with kind of the despair that's coming from where the movie starts. But those characters, though, they still, they act kind of smart, but there are some dumb things they do in the original as well that I saw similarities with this one.
Okay.
But from a writing perspective, the first one's much, much, more well written.
Okay. In this one, just a couple of the things that I was like, what? Why was this written this way? When she put her hand on that nail, tense scene. That scene got me. The sound was great, looked great. I was like, holy crap. Why did he have to pull it out right then? Why did we pause and pull that out? I'm like, right now, the risk of you screaming as I pull this out is the least of my concerns. Right now, our concern is getting out of this crawl space and away from here, and we can get that nail out of your hand later. That was just my thought. So I was like, even if there was a better way to explain it, could have been there. Or right after that, when they run to the shed and we mentioned him jumping through the window, pulling her, glass breaking, and the two of them run away, and he just stops for a second and goes down to, it's okay. You're okay. We're going to be okay. Let's just sit here and hug each other for a second while we lose track of these killers. And I'm like,
well, the worst example of that's after he shoots the wrong guy, and they're standing on the porch and like having this little emotional moment where they obviously just shot a shotgun, so the strangers know where the hell they are, and they're taking maybe 30 seconds to a minute and 30 seconds. I don't even know how long it was, but to have this emotional moment. Which I kind of appreciate them trying to say, like, I think if I remember correctly, like she's trying to like calm him down, like he killed a person, and like I like how they tried to address that, because someone killing somebody is serious. In some movies, I think people just killed. I mean, there's no impact from that. But yeah, I think there are a couple scenes in this movie that are like what you're describing.
Yeah, there is just some really cringy dialogue in this movie. I don't remember the original being cringy. So I gave the script a 2. On to acting.
Well, I feel this is another one I overscored as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, everything was so fresh then, but now when I think about it, like the day after, I've got a little bit of change in my idea of things, especially after everything we've already talked about, as far as how cheesy some of the stuff is. I was at a 4, but I'm going to knock that down to a 3 as well. There's just like the stuff with the townies. I figured there would have been more out of that. Like there would have been more interaction, that would have been a little more tense. And like with those townies, be like, "Oh, come have a beer with us," and him being declining, and they're always too good for us. You figure that he would have maybe had some kind of reaction to that could have played into something, but that felt kind of flat. And just the way things were in the diner just felt kind of awkward. I mean, I get that it's supposed to be awkward in some place, but just like really, really, really weird, awkward to me. It was just an average delivery, even though your two main characters, especially Ryan, he just seemed kind of weak as a character with his acting.
I agree.
Maya was okay. Ryan just kind of didn't really do much for me on it. So yeah, I'm hitting a 3 on the acting.
I gave it a 3 as well, which may be even inflated, but I'm going to stick with it. I want to give this movie as many points as I can.
I admire that.
Yeah, I think Brian, whatever his name was, I think he's
generic white bread.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have anything special to add. Like I mentioned earlier, I have this bias towards Maya, but I don't know. I think the townie. Yeah, I mean, she looked good in those jeans, man. Like, I don't know. It takes a special woman.
You like the jeans, not the.
I liked her in just a shirt.
When it was just a shirt.
I don't know, man. I appreciate a woman that's fully clothed.
Wow, that is respectful. I like it.
I've lost every train of thought. I'm in somewhere else. I think this might go back to a thing I said earlier, but I think the strangers themselves, I mentioned their personality. I liked the way they acted. I liked the subtleness to everything they did, to the aggression. I thought they were pretty scary. And I mean, you can only do so much when you're A, wearing a mask, and B, you can't talk. And I think they did the most with that. And so I don't know. I gave it a 3. It probably should be worse, but I think I don't know. It fits the whole, 80s kind of cheese that I mentioned earlier that I enjoy. So I wasn't offended by it.
Yeah. So I agree with everything you guys have said. I do think Ryan was the big downfall of this. I actually thought she was quite good. There were many times I joked earlier about her being from a CW show. I was actually very impressed with her. So I believe that she was scared multiple times. He was actually on Teen Wolf on MTV for a while. So,
Oh God.
That'll do it. Yeah.
uh-huh. So
She was really good at displaying emotion, like the whole range of emotion. Like you mentioned fear, but I mean the whole love thing, like laughing, like she did a really good, and I don't know, being serious. So
yeah,
she was good.
No, I was genuinely impressed with her, not with him at all. I never believed that he was actually scared, and so
Dude.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's like you would expect more of a masculine reaction to that type of situation, where he still kind of floundered a little bit as a soft boy to me. Do you guys get that at all?
Yep. I did.
I think he would have been more tense, more ready, more militant, more aware, more paying attention to your surroundings to catch shit than it seemed like he could have.
We had that one scene where he ran out and scared Dollface out of the driveway, and then she ran away very comically.
I liked how she ran away. It reminded me of I liked how she ran away.
I thought she was doing it on purpose to like portray she's younger than she actually is. I did not take it as like she runs stupid. I took it as she is doing that to make him think that she's 13. So that is the way I took it.
I think these people just have like their own personalities, and I think hers is like living in like a younger girl's mind or body or whatever. And I think they just have. I mean, they obviously or they have mental issues, but I think maybe she believes she actually is a child. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think my biggest drawback on this acting overall was that because I never felt like he was truly scared, the movie did not hit with quite the same impact for me. So like I said earlier, I think the original is one of the scariest movies. It's probably on my top 5 scariest movies I've ever seen, and more for the idea necessarily than anything else. And while this movie has the same idea, I genuinely believed that both of them in the original, were terrified. Even though he's doing things to like protect the girl who turned him down at the proposal and so on, I believed he is terrified in the original film. I didn't believe this guy was ever that scared. So it did take it away from me. She gets all the credit in this movie for being great. I gave it a 2, mostly for her performance. I thought she was good. She needed help from him a little bit more. So I'm curious to see, again, where 2 and 3 go with it.
Okay. All right. So aside from that, then that takes us on to direction.
Yeah.
Direction I was actually pretty pleased with. I liked the way the direction went. I gave it a 4. A lot of the way the use of the environment inside the cabin, with like how they shot stuff from like throughout the little bookcase where the record player is.
Yeah.
When she's trying to find her phone, it's been moved over there. Some of the angles from the second floor, looking down into the living room and everything. The way they set it up for that shot where she's playing the piano and you see, Scarecrow sitting in the rocking chair behind her and everything. And then one of the big things I really liked was the way, like, when Baby Doll is knocking on the door, asking if Tamara's there, they open up and like it's dark because someone turned out the light, so keeping her in that shadow so you don't see. I thought that was a really great thing that they did with that part. I like the way they ran a lot of scenes, even though, I think the whole diner scene could have been done a bit better. But aside from that, I was overly pleased. So 4 does it for me on that part.
Yeah, I mean, I once again, I gave it a 4 as well. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think the cinematography was really crisp, and I think the movie actually did a pretty good job of being suspenseful. Like, Jonathan, I know you've mentioned that a few times, but I mean, even me knowing everything that's going to happen, essentially, I specifically, I think the scene where they're under the house when she gets the nail in her hand, I thought that was a good addition to this movie. That, I mean, it's not in the original.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I'd agree.
Yeah, and I thought it was just a really tense scene. I kind of like how they have to pull it out there. I mean, I don't know. I've been trying to mentally think about what I would do. And but I don't think it's completely absurd that they wanted to get the nail out. I don't know.
I don't think so either. I just think in my mind, I'm going, the number one thing above all is to get as far away from here as possible. We can deal with cuts, scrapes, nails in hands later.
You're on elbows
away.
anyway.
Yep.
I mean,
didn't
in
even
both.
mention, like,
go ahead.
the part that pissed me off in the script is we mentioned that woods scene that went on way too long. But then I was like, oh, this is cool when he got her with the shotgun. And he had the shotgun pressed against the back of her head. I was like, this was not in the original twist. I'm here for it. Where are we going? And then he just stood there and floundered for 2 minutes. Why? Give me a reason not to shoot you right now. I'm like, you have every reason to right now. Go ahead. Don't quit dragging this out. And then he's like, they always say the first one's the hardest. Well, you'd be the second. I'm like, so why did you wait for so long? I get you're not eager to kill somebody. I applaud that in you.
Shut it, Chatty Cathy. God.
Yeah, but this person is trying to kill you. Don't give them any time. That's just I hated the way they dragged that scene out. Hated
and
it.
You don't hear like Scarecrow plowing through the forest coming at you before he actually gets to you and surprises you last minute out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Come on. Yep. You're in the woods. There's shit all over the flat. You're going to hear a big dude running through the forest coming at you way ahead before he gets to you. That was so dumb.
Which there's a really good moment in the first one where you do just hear footsteps and he turns and it's Scarecrow like right in his face. But I think that scene, I actually like that line where he says like, whatever about the first kill, or the second, I don't know.
Isn't that from the original movie?
No.
They tell Baby Doll when they're driving away, because Baby Doll steps outside and she gets that flyer from the little Mormon boys. And
they say it'll be easier next time. That's what they say. So kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
so
it's that same,
exactly the same thing.
Yep, that's what I thought. I was like, they say something very similar, if not the same, in the original, which I did notice. Baby Doll does not kill anybody in this one.
Like I said,
was she in the opening scene where they're chasing the guy in the suit through the woods, or was it just Scarecrow and Dollface?
Scarecrow dropped the axe on him. Then Dollface kills.
I swear I saw two people in the woods. I couldn't remember if there was a third, if Baby Doll was with them, because I swear you only see the two of them and then hatching the guy.
I thought she was.
Okay.
So
but that is one of the areas that is one of the areas where I wondered if this was a prequel, because the original film talks about Baby Doll's first kill. And this one, she did not kill any of them. So I was curious about that. But anyways, direction, Chris. Sorry, we tangented. Or had you finished?
No, I love the tangent. So I thought in the first one, when she says it'll be easier next time, I thought they meant like the whole home invasion thing. Like this will be easier. Like it won't be as dirty. But it confused me this morning because they play with them the whole time, so it could have been very easy to kill both those people, and it wasn't. But now I hear what you're saying about her actually killing whoever she killed. Tyler, who didn't actually.
So I got to watch those originals, man. Jeez.
Yeah, Jonathan. I think I want you to watch the other two, and maybe we can reconvene. And now I want to do all three of these movies, and then on the third one, discuss the entire now that we've seen all three, because the director said, and I think this goes into the direction, he has said multiple times that this is not a standalone film. He has said they made a 4.5 hour long movie. And this is act one. And so that
might be cool.
Which it might be cool. So when we talk on chapter 3, which is supposed to come out next spring, we're supposed to get chapter 2 this fall, winter.
Okay.
And then chapter 3 in spring. So they're supposed to be released pretty quickly together. They were all filmed at the same time. They're all shot.
Oh,
so
okay.
I am curious. I do want to see, once we get chapter 2 and chapter 3, does it make sense? Is it better? And I get what Chris is saying. It is leaning more into the 80s camp, But what I liked about The Strangers was I thought both of the previous Strangers were deadly serious films. And this one was not as deadly serious. And I'm okay. I like The Strangers. So just like the Scream franchise, I'll watch them all, but I'm going to watch some of them more than others. And that's so far, that's where I'm at. I'm okay with more Strangers films. So far, you haven't completely tainted their name yet. So I'll watch them all. I'll probably own this trilogy when it finishes. Overall, I thought the direction was good. There were a couple shots that I loved, and I wish we would have. And I wonder if we're going to see better stuff as it goes and we go into original territory. Because I mentioned I don't like some of those quick cuts in conversation. I felt like he struggled in the slow scenes to direct compellingly. But when the tension was there was some cool stuff. Like when she went through that nail and we went up through the floorboards and saw Dollface standing over her, I was like, that was cool. Or like we've mentioned, that mirror over the piano, there was a lot of good stuff in here. There were some great ideas. So I'm on board for the rest of these movies, even if this one makes me wish they would have just made a sequel to the original. Like, you don't even have to have Liv Tyler at this point. We recast people all the time. Just have somebody else pick up where the first one left off and tell us what's going on. So that's where I'm at on this. I gave the direction a 3. I thought it was good. I do think moving into original territory, it could improve.
Okay. Well, before I forget though, one other scene I really liked too was when Maya's in the shower and she's put everything in here, and then you see Scarecrow. She steps back to back, and then she moves and he disappears again. Another ninja moment, poof, in the breeze. Like, what the hell, man?
I thought we were going full slasher movie at that point. Like, I thought we were about to get some nudity, and I was like, Strangers has officially entered full slasher genre.
I was hoping for nudity so bad.
That goes against what you said earlier, Chris.
I know, but I mean,
I like with the clothes on.
It's very tastefully shot. Very tastefully shot.
Very much.
See, we just mentioned the cheese, like the cheese factor of it. Like, I found the cheese factor hard. So this morning, I started my morning off. Chris, you watched the original this morning. I started this morning off watching Joe Bob Briggs' Last Drive-In covering Death Spa, which is just talking about cheese factor. Death Spa is a jazzercise 80s athletic club that is possessed by the owner's former paraplegic wife who killed herself. And so her ghost is haunting / possessing the technology of this gym, killing every girl that he speaks to.
How did the paraplegic kill themselves?
She was in a wheelchair and she dumped gasoline on herself and lit herself.
Oh, geez.
It shouldn't be funny. It shouldn't be funny, but it's so...
I don't know.
It's like, I love the movie Death Spa. I'm pretty sure it's free on Tubi. It's like Hilary Banks from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is in it. She's one of the girls in it. It's a fantastic, terrible film. It's like 85 minutes long. I love the crap out of it just because it's so ridiculous.
It sounds like it should be a trauma film or something.
Oh, it's not, but yes, it sounds like it should. And I
can imagine it as a trauma film from what you've described.
It's just great. The entire thing takes place in a health club. Somehow the ghost unscrews the diving board. The diving board comes loose while somebody's on it, tries to kill him. This guy's doing weights like this, and the ghost manipulates the computer because it's, super modern. So the computer adjusts the weights. So he's doing this, and the computer keeps adding weights, and he snaps his arms back and his ribs fall out. It's so good. It's a great movie. Anyway, it's It Factor. If you want to see Cheese Factor, go watch Death Spa. It Factor, we're talking about for the Strangers.
As far as It Factor goes, I didn't really see much in it. It's just kind of there. It just wasn't anything really significant to me. It just felt kind of meh. I mean, I gave it a 3, but I feel like maybe now that was overreaching a bit. So I'm gonna knock it down to a 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it just wasn't anything significant. It's just another horror film. Meh. What do you guys think?
We're all in agreement on this one.
I gave it a 2. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of unfair to grade a movie like this on, it factor for 2 reasons. A, because it came out. I mean, it's out. This is the first weekend.
It's early.
Although we can forecast how it's going to do and impact people, which isn't a lot.
No.
But I also think for a movie like this, we need to kind of see all 3 and then decide. And so I didn't want to ding it completely on its own for not, really adding much. I mean, I know I mentioned to you, it's kind of like a Force Awakens type thing where you need to see, The Last Jedi. Well, you don't actually. That's kind of a bad example because you at least never need to see the return of whatever. I don't even know.
I'm gonna cut this out. The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're a Palpatine.
So yeah, I gave it a 2. I didn't want to be too unfair, but at the end of the day, I kind of think that this movie won't be that impactful. I don't know that this trilogy will be very impactful one day, so I don't know. I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 2. Right now, we are probably the most positive review you're going to hear about it.
Oh, wow.
Every review I've seen has talked about how terrible this film is. I don't think it deserves that.
I agree. And I've really tried to, like I said, I don't know if it's just because of how bad the writing and maybe the act, how dumb the characters are, but I really don't understand the complete bombardment of, I don't know, just negative reviews on it. I didn't think it was, I wasn't offended by the end of it. I don't know.
No, I think the only reason I'm not super mad about it is because we're getting part 2 and 3. If we weren't, I might be madder at this movie, in all honesty, because it does dumb down the story from the original, I feel like. But I gave it 2 because the online marketing has been great. I've seen them all over Instagram, and honestly, some of the promos are better than the film. They went to the county fair and shot the strangers amongst the crowd and just put them in photos and release it. The promo stuff was cool. It was getting me hyped for this film. So I gave it a 2 because the social media stuff, honestly, I liked it more than I liked the movie. I thought the social media stuff was awesome. And they did a better job marketing this online than I've seen movies do recently. And so I was here for that. I almost gave them more until I saw the reviews and people it's not going well, even though they marketed it well. So I gave it a 2 as well for it factor.
What was that? What was that imaginary movie or whatever? I saw it on Instagram a lot, and they had really
Imaginary
cool...
Friends. If
no, not that one, not that one.
Oh,
with Ryan Reynolds.
It's a horror movie that just came out 2 months ago. It's called Imaginary.
Yeah, Imaginary about a teddy bear.
Yeah,
that's demon possessed. Yeah,
it's apparently really bad, but it had some really cool Instagram marketing as well. That intrigued me. But
I heard it was bad as well. I wanted to see it though. So how entertained were you? Ooh, can I go first? Because I want to surprise you guys.
Yeah, get at it.
I actually gave this movie a 7. So I know after all I've talked about it, that's why I actually gave it a 7. It's like Chris said, it didn't offend you. And honestly, it didn't offend me. I almost wish it had. I almost wish it had just taken the leap and gone for something crazy. It played it really safe. I did find a couple of scenes, even though I thought I was stupid, why are we pulling the nail out now? I was still crap, they're going to hear you. I was still invested in that scene. I wasn't fully on the edge of my seat, but I was legitimately mad in the theater at the Woods when he had the gun to her head. But anyways, because I thought that was dumb. But
And there was that whole scene with him using the water bottle as an inhaler when he's trying to be quiet in the middle of the woods.
What the hell? Yeah, I
you
didn't even
brought
get
that
that
up, and now I'm mad about it again. So so early on, when he has that like nearly head-on collision and has an asthma attack, I was like, oh, this could be really interesting. Like we added a layer to suspense. Like we now know that he relies on this inhaler. How are we going to use that later? Oh,
barely.
he's going to have to drive back into town on the motorcycle to get the inhaler out of his car. And then we're going to get some red herrings with the townies. And then he's going to drive back. And then that inhaler is not going to matter again because he's not going to have it when he actually needs it. And he's going to use a water bottle. And I wanted to Google if that actually works. Like I get getting moisture in there, but who knows if that was actually a water bottle? That was like some farmer's tractor in the middle of nowhere. It could have been pee from 10 years ago. But anyways, he does that, inhales it, and then he disappears. And I was just like, that was the biggest waste. You're going to tell me that he has an asthma attack hiding in the woods, but not after he shot a guy in the face with a shotgun? He's not freaking out then?
I will say, in this movie's defense, the first movie, he leaves too to go get Arwen, Liv Tyler, more cigarettes.
Arwen. That's how I was thinking.
Yeah, I forgot her name until the credits this morning. I just kept calling her Arwen because she's beautiful. Oh my gosh, she is like an elf. But yeah, he went to go get her cigarettes, and he doesn't even bring back the cigarettes. Like she never smokes a cigarette. It's kind of silly. Like I mean, and he leaves right after they knock, and then she needs cigarettes, and so he leaves her alone in a house where they just had this super creepy encounter with a stranger. And then she gets terrorized similar in this one. But anyways,
I never thought about that. But no, that was that whole asthma storyline served no purpose other than to add tension that could have been cut. So yeah, but I enjoyed this movie in the same way. Here's the issue. Here's the overall issue I have with this film. I think the first one is in a class of its own. It is, to me, the scariest home invasion film I've ever seen. Love it. This one is slightly less entertaining than the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix right now. So have either of you seen the Fear Street trilogy?
No.
It's like
I used to read the Fear Street when I was a
1994, 1978, 1666. It's great fun. It's great fun. That's what it is. It is fun. There are some great kills in it. It's an entertaining trilogy. This is somewhere underneath those for me. Same quality, same whatever. It took what I think is a fantastic film and it made it for the Netflix generation. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it weakened some of it for me. I still found it entertaining though. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It was entertaining. I'm here for the next trilogy or for the next two movies. And I want to see if I compared it to the Fear Street trilogy. I want to see if this trilogy will stack up to the Fear Street trilogy for me. That'll be fun for me. So I recommend the Fear Street trilogy. I think they're like what would happen if you took R.L. Stine's Fear Street books and made them rated R. And they know that. So they're kind of campy and they're kind of silly and they're a ton of fun and they're stylish. And the first one is like a Scream 90s slasher with full mall, all that stuff. The second one is a camp slasher in 1978. So obviously where we're going with that one's great. 1666 traces, it's all got this like overarching story that leads back to 1666 to this witch that was burned in the whatever, and it's connecting them all. It's a fun trilogy, and I think that's where this is going. I don't think it's going to be like the hopeless horror of the original. I think it's going to be a fun trilogy, and I'm here for it. So that was my
Okay, what do you
long-winded
think,
7 out of
Chris?
10 on entertainment.
Go ahead, Chris. Where are you at on it?
Yeah, I gave it an 8. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I think for me it was like two things. I don't know that in recent years, I'm trying to think of the last, maybe like barring Scream, I haven't seen this type of horror movie in a theater environment in a long time. And I could be just misremembering. But I was sitting in this crowd and I went by myself. But like it was like 3/4 of a full theater actually. I was pretty surprised. And it was, I mean, they were kind of like rowdy and it was kind of interactive, so I thought it would piss me off. But I think for this type of movie, like I heard people like say "oh shit," or I mean, people were kind of talking like little like micro commentaries you hear throughout, which, like I said, normally would really anger me. But for a movie like this, it was kind of fun, and I had like a fun theater experience with it, which I think helped with my enjoyment of the movie, because I think this movie is a perfect movie to where, I mean, I'm not going to get mad that someone's kind of talking about something silly in it at like in the corner of the theater, because it's not a movie that's, I mean, it's not an incredible movie or anything, but I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it. And, for every reason we've said before, every other positive thing I've said this episode. And I don't know. I think at the end of the day too, it was really well paced. Like I would watch this movie again someday, maybe with a group of friends, or if we're all drinking or at a party. I think it would be a fun movie to throw on in the background.
Right on. Okay. For me, I'm hitting the same. I'm on an 8 with it as well. For me, I really enjoyed a lot of the tension and the suspense, waiting for stuff, and like some of the jump scare action that we had in there with some of the sound stuff. And then just the back and forth with them trying to figure out like who the hell are these people, what's going on, and the way the strangers interacted with each other, the way they went in through the house, going after their own little targets and everything. I liked it a lot. I think it was despite some of my feelings about some of the other categories, I think an 8's a pretty safe place for me with how I feel about it. I would definitely be down to tell my friends about it. Like, hey, definitely check this out. This could be something good, especially, consider what we're thinking about what could potentially happen with chapter 2 and 3. And that's just where I sit with that.
I think you should definitely watch the first one, but I think you should take some time. Like, don't watch it immediately after this one, because because you watched this one first, you're going to see so much in the original that you saw in this one, and it might kind of like skew
the original.
Yeah, because that's kind of how I felt this morning. I knew the original was a better movie, but there were just scenes that I was like, I felt like I just saw this last night, which I kind of did. But I say give it some time, but definitely the original is awesome.
I do recommend watching Pray at Night, because that one is totally unlike the other two. Chris hates it. I love it.
I hate that movie.
Like Pray or Prey?
Prey. I think I have a copy. I'll let you borrow. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere.
It was streaming for me on HBO Max or whatever it's called.
You have Max?
I've got Max. I can check it out.
Okay. Yeah. Pray at Night is going to be very different than the 2008 or this one. But there's, like Chris and I talked about it a little bit this week. I think there's a lot to like in that movie. There's a lot to dislike in that movie. The ending is utter garbage. But the rest of the film, I think it's got some freaking cool stuff in it. Chris disagrees. I don't want to spoil that one for Jonathan. This one is so similar to the original that if you've seen this one, nothing will surprise you in the original. It's just going to be which one you prefer. Okay. Yeah. Do you guys have, so I would be curious, in all honesty, having started with this one, if you go back and watch the other one, if you still think if you think this is the better film, or if you think the other one is better. Because it could be one of those things that most people showing up to this movie love the original. So I'd be curious to see that.
Okay, right on.
But for people that didn't see the original, this could have that impact potentially that the original had on you and I. You know,
I agree. I
I mean, not
agree.
to the same degree, but like that whole the eeriness of the home invasion type tone. You know,
Yeah, like this could ruin some people on Airbnbs.
so did Barbarian. So did Barbarian.
Oh man, I loved Barbarian. Jonathan, did you see Barbarian?
No clue.
Barbarian. I think that one's on HBO Max too. That is one of
I
the
got a
most
lot of movies I got to
original.
catch up on.
That is one of the most original horror movies I have seen in years. I love that movie from top to bottom. I'm not
All
gonna
right, so
lie.
Brat
I
Knight
love
and
that movie.
Barbarian. I got to watch those. Okay.
Barbarian's way better.
Oh yeah.
I
But
would
actually-
probably agree with that.
Barbarian, I like the top a lot. Like I like the first like act a lot, and then maybe the first half. But the ending, I mean, I enjoy that movie. I've seen it multiple times, and we don't. This is a tangent, but I don't know how I feel about like maybe the final like act, final sequence. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know if I like how it resolved.
I think it just goes off the rails, and that's one of the things I love. Like the first act is perfect and does mess with that Airbnb, but I think the thing I love about it is so the direction in that movie is fantastic. I'm eagerly waiting for his next film because he did such a good job with that one. And there's so many layers of creepiness to Barbarian. Yeah, but I was watching this one and that Airbnb cabin in the woods. Like my wife and I's favorite place to go is, we call it our cabin. It's on Airbnb, but we book it like 4 times a year and just go to our cabin, which is out in the woods on somebody else's property. And I was watching this. I'm like, yeah, it's a very similar thing. I love it. It didn't make me scared to go back there, which I wish it would have.
Okay.
So do you guys give your overalls?
I think with all of my changes, it puts me at a 33.
And then mine's a 31.
So mine was a little harsher, but I was a 24. That, yeah. Like I said, my enjoyment level, though, was really right up there with you guys. It's just I was a little more critical.
Which I think, too, like with this format, movies like this, I feel like it does kind of treat, and this isn't a criticism to you or anything. I don't want this to sound like that. But
I spent years making this.
But it's
It
like
was
Friday. It's like a Friday the 13th movie, like one of the originals. I mean, for most of these categories, it's gonna like be like 1 to 3, maybe if you're generous. But entertainment's gonna be generally high,
Right,
and so,
right.
And I think this movie kind of falls. I mean,
That right there, what you said, is my biggest problem with it. I love the Friday the 13th movies, but like the first 2 Strangers were not campy to me, and this one moved into the campy territory. And I don't really have a problem with that. I'll leave the first 2 on their own, but it does take it down a notch. So, but yeah, I agree. I think I went through 2 years ago or whatever and scored all of the Friday the 13th on my own. Someday I'd love to, like, those, they're amazing. Like my entertainment value was like a 10 on some of them, but the script was a 1. But yeah,
I think that's the beauty of the system too, is how much weight there is on the entertainment. I mean, that's 1/5 of the whole score, and so I guess that is a mitigating factor.
oh, thank you. You complimented me. No, I did. I don't know. Chris, did you hear the story, how it all started? I'm not even sure. I told Jonathan a little bit of it. It started out like it was literally 4th of July weekend, and some buddies of mine we were wanting to go through all the Marvel movies back when Marvel was big and rank them on best to worst, you know? And I was like, well, everybody watches a movie differently. Like the best Marvel movie ever made, period, end of story, is Winter Soldier. That's Winter Soldier. It's one of the top 5 superhero movies ever. But others were like, oh no, Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, what if there was a way where we could score a movie objectively and then as 1/5 of that score add our personal entertainment? Because a lot of reviewers kind of just go off their personal entertainment. And I'm like, well, even this, we can see, man,
Bless you.
sorry. Even this, we can see that, like, for the most part, when we're scoring story, character, music design, we're 1 or 2 points, we're about 1 point off of each other. So when we score objectively, we're pretty close. It's either 3-2, 4-3, 2-3, so on. So everybody's well within the range objectively, but then that entertainment factor is a big one. And then you average it all together, and that tells you how the group might perceive the film. So that's kind of how it all started. And so I wanted to take that. Like, my buddy who's been on a couple episodes always gives me a hard time. He's like, I scored out of 100. And I'm like, based on what? Just feelings? Like, I get that. I get just basing it on feelings. That's what the entertainment value is. That's a feeling. And so I wanted to give some actual weight to why we might give something. Like, I started doing the stars this year because people are like, what's 30 out of 50? It's 3 out of 5, you dummy. So I started dumbing it down to stars because we still score it the same, but then I just look at it and I'm like, oh, 30 out of 50 is 3 out of 5. So, and that actually is what our average for this movie is. Our average for this movie, 3 stars out of 5, 30 out of 50.
Which
Okay,
that's what I gave it on Letterboxd, right, when I got out of the movie. And when I did this and came home and did this, it matched up pretty perfectly to, I mean, I gave it 1 extra point or something, but I think I counted 30 out of 50 last night. And, I was impressed that it matched up with just my gut after leaving the movie.
Yes. So I love hearing that. Travis from the Nightclub podcast, they're great guys. He's been on the show a couple times. We talked, I don't remember. He did either Mars Attacks or Sixth Sense. I think it might have been Mars Attacks. But he told me, on their show, they just do it out of 10. And he's like, on my show, this would be an 8 out of 10. And I was like, cool. Yeah. So I just want to show you, your number here was 40 out of 50. Double that. 4 out of 5. That's an 8 out of 10. We hit it exactly. And he's like, oh yeah. So that's, I'm like, I like
hard. Fractions
I like hearing that. Because this is how I think of it. And I know not everybody watches movies the same way I do. I talk to you guys because my wife doesn't want to hear it. So,
but I do appreciate it because it has made me think, like, especially with the Black Christmas movies, it has made me think about movies differently than I normally do. Like, I put a lot more weight into entertainment, which I'm not, like, taking that away from. Like, this movie, I put a lot of weight into the entertainment in the theater, which is why I liked it a lot, I think. But you have given me a new, realm to think about movies.
Oh.
Okay, I like the way
Chris is going to be joining us for Black Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's all right, Jonathan. What were you saying?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, like last night, like I met this like nice young couple that sat next to me in the theater, and like I appreciate the way we do our scoring system, and they're the ones who actually got me to sit and wait for that post-credit scene. Oh, I didn't think it was going to be. He's like, no, usually when the lights are still like this, there's something, so we're going to wait. And so I waited with them, and I was talking about how I was going to do the recording today. And they're like, oh, what is it? So I explained them what the average is and how we do things. And I even shared them one of our episode links from YouTube. And I sent them the link for the review. I told them, if you guys would, that'd be awesome if you join us. Give us your scores. Tell us what you think. And maybe we can include that in something later on or put it in the comments, post what your scores were. We want people to be involved. And so they were like, oh, yeah, that'll be great. So hopefully they will fill something out that we can add to it. Have you seen anybody else fill out any scores?
Not yet. We are the only 3 for this one. Yeah. I do get, so Bryce and his wife occasionally send me scores. Occasionally my siblings will score things. But yeah, like that is the goal ultimately, that like I played around on, I can't remember that technology, that app website to build your own websites.
Wix.
No, it's a newer one that's pretty popular. I don't know.
Like
I was playing around
WordPress
with
or something, or
what?
WordPress. Well, it's not really
No,
new.
it's very loose. It's very more designer based. I want to find somebody who can develop an app essentially like Letterboxd, which is where I was like, dang it, Letterboxd. But where you can kind of set up your own profile, review a movie, and then but you're reviewing it based on our system and it jumps right into the score and it becomes part of the average. I'd love to do that someday. I don't have money though, so that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
When I was building the website, having somebody with their personal database on the back is like, that was way beyond me. So I was like, yeah, not going to happen. And it is so similar to Letterboxd, but yeah, that's what I hate about it. Like Letterboxd started becoming a big thing after we started doing episodes. So that's what sucks. But right now I just want people to have fun. They send in their comments. We'll read them on air. We'll talk about it if we're doing an episode about it. Even if we're not doing an episode about it, we'll do a social media post about it. I can get it up there. But yeah. So I like hearing that our scores lined up with what you did, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I liked that too. I thought it was good. It was very affirming. It was a thing of affirmation.
All right, guys. We have anything else to say? You want to give your final thoughts? I think it would be nice if you were to tell somebody, let's close it out. Final thoughts. If you're going to tell somebody to watch this movie, how would you do it? Should I go first? Because I already put thought into this. I'll let you guys think about it.
Yeah, you go for it. Take lead.
Okay, so if I was going to tell somebody to watch this movie, I would tell them to watch the first two first. So after seeing this one, Jonathan, I misled you. After seeing this one, I strongly recommend watching the first one from 2008. And then if you like it, go into the rest of these movies, give them a shot, see what they're about. I think this one is a pale impersonation or a weak impersonation of the original. But I do think that part 2 and part 3 could be worth watching this one, but time will tell. So that is, I've enjoyed it, but if it was just this movie and the original, I don't recommend this one. I'm going to recommend the original. This one will be made or broken on part 2 or 3.
Okay. Would you got anything, Chris? I'm still trying to figure out what I would do here.
My brain function's limited at this moment. I don't know. I mean, I know I always do this and Tim hates it, but I know this movie isn't a slasher, but it just has so many slasher elements and I think it's refreshing in terms of the horror we've been getting the last decade almost. I mean, like I said, I might be misremembering. I know we get new Scream movies, but it's a lot of paranormal horror and psychological horror. And so I think a slasher derivative movie like this is really refreshing and fun. And just having a new one, even though it is, very reminiscent of a movie that was made in 2008. It was just it was a good theater experience for me. And so I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I think overall, I would just tell people if you like suspense, if you like being suspense and the small little scares here and there, then yeah, check it out for sure. Yeah. Except I haven't seen the others. I don't have much context for comparison, so that really limits me. But that's all I can really say about it.
And it's the least, you mentioned a slasher movie, and some people might be turned off by typical gore of a slasher movie. This movie's not gory at all. So that shouldn't be a reason to stop people. One of the things I neglected to mention throughout recording, dang it, I love the hunt of these. So a lot of slashers just kind of feel like Jason kills because the person's there. The strangers are hunting and toying with these people for, in the movie, hours. knock on the door, they run away, they come around back, on and on. So I think that makes the Strangers unique. It's one of the things I like about him is that toying with him. I always feel like in every movie, even this one, I feel like they have a much clearer and better understanding of their surroundings than our heroes. So I always like that about this. It's like they scoped their hunting ground. It's honestly almost more like Jason is a slasher villain. These guys are serial killers. Like, I do think there's a difference. So, and that's one of the things I love about The Strangers. Even if this wasn't my Strangers movie, I'd rank it 3rd out of 3. But I want more Strangers content because I like them. So they're different. Keep it coming. I'm excited for part 2. Part 2 could end up being my favorite Strangers movie. I don't know. We'll see.
I just don't know how there's going to be a part 3. That's kind of what baffles me. I guess it's, very contingent on part 2, but I don't know how they spread this into 3 parts.
Chris, I'm telling you right now, if part 2 has a kill in a swimming pool, I'm done with this whole thing.
I hope it does. If part 2 is like a worse version of Pray at Night, I'm discounting this movie entirely. It's all zeros. So I'm on the record. This movie is terrible. If the sequel is Pray at Night Light, I will. I can't even imagine.
I want Jonathan to watch Pray at Night and tell us what he thinks about it, because
I might watch that tomorrow night then.
Chris and I are very divided. I enjoyed the movie up until there is one specific scene that I think after that the movie devolves into stupidity, but I think the rest is solid. Chris,
I just think the movie is so boring, and I don't think there's a whole lot of suspense actually, and I don't want to spoil a whole lot of Pray at Night because we haven't talked about it, so Jonathan can go into that and actually But
there is a pool kill if you couldn't tell, but
which is cool. I agree that's the best scene. I think that's by and large the best scene in the movie.
I think Pray at Night so far out of these 3 is the most stylish of all 3. I think it is.
Yeah, but these movies aren't they shouldn't be stylish.
Well, I think Pray at Night nails it.
Oh, maybe, but I don't know. I've seen that movie more times than I've seen the original Strangers at this point, and I don't know why. A and B, I don't think I'll ever see that movie again. I hope not.
I think the original Strangers is a hard watch. That's why I don't watch it all the time. It honestly makes me uncomfortable and scared. So I'm not. It's one of those ones that I love because it truly upsets me. But that's just the original for me. All right, guys. We've talked for longer than the movie's runtime. So,
that seems to be. Oh, yeah, never mind.
I will say that the statistic they had at the very start of the film, so many violent, murders are committed every 2.63 seconds. The length of time that you've been watching this film so far, that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
that was pretty spicy at the start.
It was.
What did you think about that fourth wall break though? Because I saw that in the first minute, and they referred to themselves as being a film. It was kind of meta, and I was scared. I was scared about what was going to happen.
You thought this movie was going to be terrible because you saw that?
Well, I don't know. It is. I don't know. It just felt wrong, sort of, to me. The film referring, it felt. I don't know. Did you guys think at all about it or no?
No.
Well, now I'm gonna. I did. I was like, wow, they just did that. But I was also like, I don't mind it because it made it a little more grounded, honestly. And then we threw the grounded stuff out the window. But my problem with that is, from what I can remember, both of the movies start with the same statistic. Even the one from 2008, same statistic years ago.
Oh,
I don't think so. I don't. I feel bad because if I say no and it's right, I just watched this movie 12 hours ago.
That's not the point. That's okay.
And I was sober 12 hours ago, for the record.
But they mentioned the most brutal crime. This is one of them. It should be obvious to you by now that this movie is beat for beat the same as the original, but a very different film, like different location, different couple, different story. Okay, fine. We just like mad-libbed certain things out of there. So what is it based on? If we can just interchange these parts and keep it based on a true story. The true story it's based on is the Manson family murders.
Oh.
I didn't know that. I thought they made that up.
From what I understood, it is the general idea of random violent crime, but the idea that got the original writer thinking was the idea of the Manson family murders, where people you didn't know could just walk in and kill you for being there.
Okay. Yeah.
And now, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go. I was going to say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood did it so.
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah. I was gonna say I'm gonna go watch that movie right now.
I love that movie. But all right,
I like that one a lot.
On that note, let us know if you want to hear us cover Chapter 2 and 3. I'm down for it. I'm gonna see them. Even if the reviews for 2 come out that it's the worst film ever made, that's honestly more fire for me to go, because I love watching trashy films. Let us know. Hit those comments. Thanks, Chris, for joining Jonathan and I.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Anytime.
And we'll see you back for those 13 Nights of Halloween episodes. Chris will actually be joining us for not 1, not 2, but 3 episodes. So, Chris, you hold the record of our most listened to episode so far. Dune Part 2 has our most viewed. So we'll get you caught up. But
that one's most deserving. That movie's awesome.
It was a great film. But all right, we will see everybody in 2 weeks with our next episode. I want to tell you a little bit about Zencastr. When I was preparing for our 13 Nights of Halloween series, I was really searching for a way to streamline the process. I wanted a professional looking setup to invite our guests to. I wanted quality audio and video recording, and I wanted the easiest way to release the episodes to as broad of an audience as possible. This is how I landed on Zencastr. It is now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Just log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. And speaking of audio quality, have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you are thinking of starting your own podcast or just want to streamline what you are already doing, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code AVERAGECUSTOMER, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. That's average customer, one word. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.